Another successful Witcher 3 Wild Hunt playthrough. Wow, would you look at the time? It's been a year already. I should probably go in for a doctor's appointment.
You've received a new quest card.
Quest, you say? Well, now I should definitely go in for a doctor's appointment. Dr. Rafferty, I just finished my Witcher 3 playthrough. I've been in my basement for too long. I don't want to talk about it, but things are going weird on my end. Can I come in and see you?
Oh, Draven, it's you. You're still alive. How's my favorite patient doing?
You don't understand. These voices, they're telling me the most mundane, basic things that I already understand. And if I hear one more time that I need to get my combat multiplier even higher, I'm gonna kill somebody.
Try to get your combat multiplier even higher.
Whoa, now listen here, son. I'm here to tell you, if you don't start listening to those voices real quick, they're just gonna get louder and louder until you do. Do you really want to go the rest of your life without following simple objectives? Don't make me prescribe for you more Dark Souls gameplay.
Oh God. Doctor, no. Not again. Listen, I'll do what you say. I'll listen to the voices. I'll give it another shot. Just, please, for the love of God, no more Dark Souls.
Yeah, okay, I'll see you later. Smooches.
Alright. Let's give these voices another shot.
There are an infinite amount of ways to teach our players how to play our games. From progression to mechanics, every good designer sets out to teach their players how to play in an interesting and unique way. Games teach their players things through a variety of tools, from fully voiced and animated NPCs that lead them forward, to simple text-based cues that teach a player what button they should press to perform a certain action. Now, instead of going into too much detail about the many various ways to teach players, instead I want to focus on a single design practice that, in my own opinion, is the exceptional practice for teaching players mechanics and creating an uninterrupted gameplay progression. And from a developer standpoint, is actually surprisingly cheap to develop for the effect it really provides your games. And this design practice is none other than sentient objects and AI. Probably some of the more common examples of these tools are Navi from the Legend of Zelda series, Cortana from Halo, Angel from Borderlands, and plenty more, some of which I will talk about in this video, including my own personal example from a game I'm working on. Each of these tools provides a similar use to their respective game, albeit with different approaches and implementations. Not only do they serve a lot of more practical use, such as driving narratives forward, highlighting points of interest and preventing players from getting stuck, but they also serve a vast array of secondary objectives. Depending on their design and execution, they can further a seamless gaming experience. Unlike text boxes or traditional pop-ups, they can tell the players things in a way that actually further immerses them into the game. They can also provide a game with a much needed substance. For example, if a game is too serious and it's hurting the gameplay experience overall, they can be a very powerful tool for inserting things like comedic relief or whatever other vibe or feeling you want to increase in your title. They can also double as an interesting plot device, as so often players usually understand that these tools are there to help them, so why would they ever lie or try to trick them? But I think some of the most unique examples of these tools actually serve their purpose in teaching the player how the game works, and then grow as characters and evolve when they're no longer needed for some really interesting narrative things. However, like most game mechanics, they aren't without their downsides. As you saw in my initial sketch, if done incorrectly, they can poorly serve their role as a way to teach and immerse players simultaneously. They can repeat too often, causing players to be annoyed. They can be poorly written, causing players to become less interested in what they have to say. And sometimes they can ruin somebody's chance at solving a puzzle or mystery they're interested in. Often as players, we will just be on the verge of solving a problem, and these tools can come in and snatch that away from us, ruining the pride we would feel if we solved it without their help. And it's extremely important to note that these shouldn't be used as a catch-all on purpose. Although it might have positive effects on helping players navigate your level, or understand your mechanics, you should never lower the quality of your level or mechanic design simply because of the effectiveness of your teaching tool. That's just lazy design. Unless, of course, that's intentionally the style of the game you're going for, then by all means go for it. Don't let me tell you how to design your vision. I'm just trying to prevent bad habits before they start. Now, with the basics out of the way, let's get into some of the examples I personally feel are great, and why I think they're such effective tools for game designers. Now let's start with my personal favorite, but probably lesser known of the list, the Guild Seal from the Fable series, specifically the first game. The Guild Seal from Fable is an honorary piece that is given to those that become heroes in the Fable universe, but with its distinction comes a more practical function. It allows any person with the knowledge of its existence to communicate with the user at any time. In Fable, this serves as a powerful tool for teaching the player, as it allows a lot of important characters to communicate with the player to advance the story, set meetings, and present objectives. But more importantly, it serves as a subtle reminder for players when they're too immersed or distracted. For instance, when the player is in the heat of combat and may not be paying attention to their health bar, it says this to them.
Your health is low. Do you have any potions or food?
This does two things. It reminds them that their health is low in case they're not paying attention, and reminds them of the tools that they have to combat it. If the player is grinding through the main story, or unsure of where to progress because they've been away from the game for a while, it will periodically remind them that they have new quest cards available. And may I say, from a developer perspective, it does all of this relatively cheaply. Instead of a fully animated NPC with lip movements and facial animations, the Guild Seal is simply a glowing 2.5D item that requires voice acting and a much simpler process. And on the other hand, it's simply more immersive than presenting the player with text cues and pop-ups that they have to read or that can interrupt their immersion of questing and combat. Now, I'm making this sound like the best of both worlds, and it's so important to note that this tool is by no means perfect, but I think it's an underrated example of a design tool that serves both practical design purpose that most players will be receptive to, whilst also being affordable for developers. Obviously, it's always about the game, and if this doesn't work for your game, that's okay, but I think it's something that you should at least explore when you go into development for your title. A second tool that I believe is very powerful has to be the Wraith effect in the Shadow of Mordor and War games. Unlike the last tool, however, this one has additional requirements from the developer, as it needs to be introduced and then fleshed out within your narrative, and potentially modeled and animated depending on how you want to do this. However, if these requirements are met or altered in a way that betters it, this tool can provide a very powerful experience for teaching new players. This design tool takes the form of a wraith. Celebrimbor is its name, and it's the reason that the main protagonist in the Shadow of Mordor and War games, Talion, can continue to live as he inhabits his body, preventing him from dying. This allows Celebrimbor to communicate with Talion or the player at any point by speaking inside of him, kind of like his conscience. This is used often throughout the games to direct the player throughout the narrative or point out things of interest, but more importantly, it serves a lot more of a contextual use than the Guild Seal does. You see, the Wraith is a historical figure, and often will point out structures, artifacts, and enemies, and provide context for their existences within the world, or input on how to progress around these different elements. Whereas the Guild Seal is more of a cell phone allowing one person to talk to the player at any time, the Wraith is a separate entity and is a constant source of conflict for the player, as they often will have very different views on how to handle things or what should be done in certain circumstances. This is often used to introduce the player to different views on how to handle situations, and allows the player to choose and explore which route they'd like to take without interrupting the gameplay experience. However, like the Guild Seal, this is by no means a perfect design strategy. A lot of players found themselves liking Talion over the Wraith, or the other way around, and if replicated, if one of your characters is clearly much better than the other, players are more likely to feel like they wish they just had one character running the show. In addition, these two characters have a very fragile existence that depends on working together. This kind of relationship is created in a way that is unfairly balanced on the power scale towards either character. It's very easy for players to lose that suspension of disbelief they have when you present them with conflicts between these two characters, as they will understand that one could easily overpower the other in any conflict, and will become disinterested in the result or frustrated when something makes no sense to them. Overall, this is a fantastic design tool for teaching players, although it is a little harder to pull off as it requires more work from developers to make it believable, but it is just as effective as the Guild Seal, with additional functionalities that may be of use to you in your game. Now the final example I want to talk about is really a culmination of both the Guild Seal and the Wraith for a game that I'm currently developing called Sacrilege. Sacrilege has an NPC character that serves multiple design requirements, but ultimately is inspired by both of these tools. Without delving too far into the narrative, this NPC is easily described as the invisible man that is constantly following the protagonist in the title. Overall, I think this tool is most effective for my project as it does a lot of what I think I want it to do, while also being a very cost-effective tool for a new developer like me, and I recommend exploring using something like this in one of your projects. So there you have it. There's a few examples that provide us designers with powerful tools to introduce our players to the best moments and mechanics within our games. And while they are by no means perfect, I think they are some of the best examples of cost-effective, high-quality tools that give us designers a lot of freedom as to how they operate and teach our players. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's Game Design Talk, and if you did, feel free to subscribe and leave a comment on what you'd be interested in hearing about. There's a lot more to come, but until then, I'm Can't Resist Tris. Keep designing, and I'll see you guys on the next video.
Hey, what is up, guys? Can't Resist Tris here. Thank you so much for watching this week's Game Design Talk. It was really just a thing I was very passionate about, and I really hope you guys enjoyed the talk, and there's going to be more soon, so feel free to subscribe to the channel, because we're going to be putting out these Game Design Talks every few weeks. I try to make sure that I have a really good idea, and I really do my research on it before I post anything, so I'm not spreading misinformation or ideas that aren't really fully fledged out, as all great designers should. Before I go, I want to give a huge shout out to the Shattered Mug. You can find a link to his channel. I'll post it right here, and it'll also be in the description for you mobile users out there. But essentially, he's a good friend of mine. We go all the way back. We used to do comedic skits. We actually still do whenever we're back in my hometown. But yeah, go check out his channel. He does a lot of great stuff. Me and him are hopefully going to be putting more collabs out on both of our channels. I believe he already has a bunch on his channel currently right now, if you want to check those out. But he's great. He posts a lot of funny content, and he actually streams on Twitch. I'll see about getting that Twitch gaming link for you, so you guys can kind of watch him game, because he's a really funny guy. And in other news, channel art. I'm working with a graphic artist to get channel and banner art. That should be on the channel in the next couple weeks to a month, hopefully, if things go well. But I'm really excited to show you guys it. It has me and Tris Marigold, and it's flawless. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys on the next Game Design Talk. Bye, guys.